it's gonna take long.
Welcome to a very special edition of Lit Happens. It's our 150th episode. We have this beautiful laser show going on behind me to celebrate it. And we have Prodigal Son from Shaw TV, Curtis Anderson, on the set with us today.
Wes, every episode of Lit Happens is special, but thank you. Thank you for that wonderful introduction. It's been a year. I'm back.
Yes, we're happy to have you. It's like old home
I
week
left
here.
the company a year ago to be a commercial writer,
Yeah.
and this is kind of my first time back with everybody. Big thanks to
Yeah.
Dean working behind the scenes as usual, and the returning Jay Neufeld, people who might not know.
Yeah.
Jay, for the 10 years I was there, was kind of my go-to cameraman for a lot of it, making me look better than I ever was. So he's back, helping create this atmospheric set for the 150th episode of What Happens. I'm excited, Wes.
I'm excited too. This is the perfect atmosphere. You're the perfect guest, and this is the perfect book for this segment. So tell us a little bit about how this book came to be, Curtis.
Gina French is not a waste of roofies.
Yeah.
You didn't say it out loud. You can feel free to. It feels good.
Gina French is not a waste of roofies.
Yeah, I think you're the first person that said it fluently without like pausing or stopping themselves, thinking they were going to say a bad word or something. So thank you for that, Wes. Thank you for treating my my book with ultimate respect.
I have nothing but respect for you and your books.
It was a 10-year project.
Yeah.
That finally got picked up by Kraken Press in Gothenburg, Sweden. After 2 years of submitting and rejections and heartbreak and tears and anger, I finally got sent a contract, and I actually signed it on an episode of Stripped Down. Remember the music show I used to do here, Stripped Down?
Absolutely.
Episode 150 of What Happens. We only did 211 of Stripped Down. I got to shut you down before then, so you don't beat my record. Okay? Just to give you a heads up. Once you clear 200, I'll be back unplugging cameras.
Wow. Yeah.
All right. So Kraken Press out of Gothenburg, Sweden, sent me official contract, and signing it was one of the best days of my life.
No doubt.
And they took care of everything else. It's on bookshelves here in Saskatoon. It's available on Amazon and Barnes and Noble, and it's doing quite well.
Yeah. Actually, I'm seeing it all over the city, which is really terrific. It's a beautiful feeling to see a friend and a colleague gain this notoriety. So I'm really excited about it.
Well, thank you very much.
Yeah. Let's start at the very beginning. Which I know is years and years ago, probably more than a decade ago.
Yeah.
What prompted you? What inspired you to start writing the first draft of Gina?
It was 2003.
Yeah.
And I was just, I don't want to say I was going through some stuff, but I needed to make some changes. Wasn't especially happy where I was currently with employment and whatnot back in the day. And one day I was standing in line at one of the banks, and there was a young teller named Gina working with a bunch of senior citizens. Is that politically correct? Yeah. She was probably younger than everybody else working there by 40, 50 years. And she was like the Flash, just running laps around everyone else. Everyone else seemed to need help. And I was just watching this poor girl try not to break. She was just running the whole show by herself.
Wow.
And I thought, wow, that poor girl, like she's gonna break. Life's not fair to her. And then as I stood in line for half an hour, I started to get these weird thoughts. Maybe she's a horrible person. Maybe maybe she deserves where she is right now. And I thought, oh, wouldn't that be a great story? Just take someone who just seems to get, dumped on by life day in and day out, but not have them be the underdog and courageous. Have them be unlikable. Tell that person's story. And that's what I was drinking a French vanilla, and I was like, Gina French, that's a title character right there. Yep, that's true story.
Great.
So I went home that night, and I was just, when you just get that electric feeling, that creative. I scribbled on loose leaf and napkins, just did the whole skeleton. It was about 10 pages. And then I put it away, And about a month later, I actually got my job at Shaw TV.
Wow.
So life took a definite swing up, and everything was roses. And I didn't think about it again until I was on a shoot with Jackie Kripke.
Yeah.
We were covering the Man Show.
Nice.
And that morning, I had pulled it out, and just for whatever reason, I was just cleaning house, and I started going over it. Wow, that was a pretty fun storyline. This was 4 years later.
Yeah.
And at the Man Show, we talked to local psychic Paulina, and she asked if I wanted a free card reading, and I'm not a big believer in it, but the first thing she did, she flipped over a card, looked at me and said, that project you're thinking about today, right now, that's the one.
Nice.
So that was my my green light to take a serious stab at locking myself in a coffee shop for the next year and a half and just actually fleshing out the story. And that became Gina French is Not a Waste of Roofies.
Nice. I love how books come together. They're just so magical sometimes. I mean, I hear lots of stories about it on this show, but I think that was one of the best.
Well, thank you very much. And I didn't sit down initially writing it, because this was like 2007, 2008, to, I'm going to submit it, I'm going to get it published. I just thought it'd be fun. I'll let my friends read it. But the more I went and the more I let people read little bits of it, I got so much encouragement. And I kept hearing, this is different. I've never heard this story be told before. So...
yeah, I just actually read it a few weeks ago, and it is very different. And maybe we should throw out there, it's not a typical Saskatchewan book.
I don't know what a typical Saskatchewan book is, but I know you come to that all the time. People question your writing and your work. And
yes, they do. They challenge.
Challenge? That's a good word.
Yeah.
This has definitely been challenged. I mean, the title alone is off-putting. It's a little smoke and mirrors. Gina French is Not a Waste of Roofies. Do you want to jump into the story already?
Yeah, let's do that.
Okay. The title's a little bit smoke and mirrors. Obviously, it's not a hateful book. Again, being picked up by a legitimate publisher, they're not going to put their name, their brand behind something that's legitimately offensive. So it's a little smoke and mirrors. Gina French is Not a Waste of Roofies is actually inappropriate joke the character Gina French made about herself when she was out one night with her friends. She is someone who has cultivated an image that she is just tough as nails, independent single mom, doesn't need anybody, don't ever mess with her. She's a correctional officer during the day. One day a riot breaks out, she comes very close to being sexually assaulted, and that tips, obviously, all the scales in her life. But suddenly, people are treating her like a victim. She's not the most likable person to begin with, and this is making her go crazy, because up till then she had complete power, no one touched her, said anything to her, so she sits at home, she's afraid to go back to work, and she had Gina French is Not a Waste of Roofies put on a mug because she thought it was funny. So she's stewing at home, staring at the mug, getting angrier and angrier, and she comes up with a legitimately terrible plan to get some of the power back and make people fear her again. And that's kind of the arc of the book. Interesting thing about the mug, the first person that went through my book and edited it said, no company would ever print Gina French is Not a Waste of Roofies on a mug. And I challenged him on that, and I sent it out, and it came back within 7 days. No one even questioned it. So there you go.
Love it. Love it. I think that's what I love so much about the book is Gina French is an anti-hero. She's dark and murky and not always that lovable or even likable. A little bit reminiscent of my own characters, and I think that's what really worked for me.
I kept her never give up attitude, though. That's her one redeeming quality, and it's so strong. And the best feedback I get about the book, that it makes me the proudest, is that when it's done, everybody will have a complete different opinion of Gina French. Some people love her, like, oh, I championed her through the whole thing. And other people, like, after the 3rd chapter, I couldn't stand her. Like, what was she doing? And to have one single character that demands that range of emotions after the book's over, that was what I set out to do. You
created a roller coaster of emotions. That's what I found.
Nice.
Yeah, almost felt like I was watching a dark thriller a lot of the time.
Thank you, Wes. That's definitely the vibe I was going for with the book. Thank you.
Awesome. Okay, we're going to talk a lot more about Gina and you because you're both fascinating. We're just going to take a little break.
without a dream in my heart, without a love of my own.
I'm gonna need you to be a little more gung and a lot less hoe.
So we're back with Curtis Anderson and his book Gina French. It's our 150th episode of Lit Happens, and we have this fabulous laser show going on in the background too.
I feel like we have to give a big shout out to Dean and Jay.
Yeah.
Jay returning again. Jay returning to Shaw with me today to set up this amazing set to
Yeah.
celebrate the 150th episode of What Happens. For those of you that don't know, Jay Neufeld was basically my camera guy for my 10 years at Shaw. Made me look way better than I ever was. So it's kind of like, it's like a homecoming today.
It really
Jay
is.
and I, Dean, working together. And we're here today, Lit Happens, because of a conversation we had back in 2009 at a coffee shop that doesn't even exist anymore. Have you
Yeah.
ever told anybody how Lit Happens started?
No, this might be a good time to spill it.
We're doing half an hour. It's episode 150, Wes.
Yeah, so just to reminisce, you came and interviewed me, and I think it was 2009 when my book was sort of flourishing, and you and I hit it off. Actually, I hit it off with the whole Shaw crew. It was really magical. So we kind of kept in touch, and then when, I don't know if you remember this, but you had me on Strip Down as a guest host.
Yeah.
We had the Fjords on the show.
And then we were at a coffee shop not too long after that.
Yeah.
And we were talking about the 5-minute book review Ian Goodwillie and I used to do, the 2 blocks.
5-minute book.
That.
Yeah.
And you were asking about doing a more serious sit-down local author, because we didn't interview local authors, we just ragged on books in our segment, right?
Yeah.
And you inquired about coming to Shaw and doing a segment where you interviewed local authors. I thought that was a great idea. I took it to my boss, pitched it, and 150 episodes later, it's an honor to be back. Making my return on What Happens. Wow.
The whole thing is really cool, actually. And when I look back at my earlier episodes of Lit Happens, I can see the show. That show was great then, but the show's come a long ways. So.
Definitely. And again, hats off to Jay Neufeld and Dean for creating this amazing set. We're not supposed to tell you where we are because the local business isn't too proud of this back room that looks like a horror movie, but it's perfect as we're pushing Gina French is Not a Waste of Roofies, available now through Kraken Press out of Gothenburg, Sweden, available where all fine books are sold here in Saskatoon and online.
You know, I need to say Gothenburg, Sweden is really cool because you and I think that's part of what brought us together was Gotham and Batman and the whole dark thriller mystery vibe that we both love so much. So.
Everybody always asks me why I didn't just self-publish, and as things got going, that was definitely in my mind that I was just going to self-publish it. But as I let people read it and they looked at the title, it started to swing the other way where people started telling me, you'll have to self-publish it, and that just lit me up. I was like, what do you mean I have to self-publish it? And they're like, well, no one's going to publish it with that title, and that just tell me something's not going to happen, and that's my biggest motivation. I was like, I'm going to prove everybody wrong. I'm going to submit it, and the submission process is horrible. It's
Oh, it is.
absolutely.
It's time consuming and horrible, and it's hard on the head. And
There were days I pulled over and punched the dash of my car. I mean, when you're submitting to U.S. publishers, you always have to include payment for them to return your manuscript or whatever back, and you have to do that through UPS. There's no way to do that through Canada Post. You can't use U.S. funds in Canada Post. So it was literally $50 U.S. to submit, and 5 days later you'd get an email that says pass. $50. It was trying, especially the first place I submitted it to.
Yeah.
Said they loved it and they'd probably take it.
Really?
First place. Yeah, back in like 2010. And I just sat back in my chair and said, hey, wow, being an author is so easy. So I didn't do anything with it. I sat on it from December until August, and then they emailed me back and said, we need to cut 6 from our like 2011 lineup, and yours was one of them. And then it was a long 2 years of rejection, and it made me cry more than an adult male probably should. But I never gave up.
no, that's what we love about you. I think somebody once said the best way to get Curtis to do something is tell him he can't.
Yeah, that's pretty accurate. That's
Yeah.
pretty. And it just became this thing where I was always so close. Even when I was submitting to, even in rejection, people would tell me, I really like it. It's original. But what is it? Is it a horror? Is it a thriller? Is it just dark fiction? Like, our marketing people have no idea what to do with it. And we hate the title. Like, okay, that's fair.
Whoa.
And maybe put like a vampire in it, because they're big right now.
Vampires were big
Right?
at the time. Yeah.
But
Now-
I just kept pushing through, and when I found Kraken Press out of Gothenburg, Sweden, it was actually the art. There's an amazing horror artist down there, George Contronis,
Yes.
who does all the art for all the books from Kraken Press, and I just immediately fell in love with his art. I was like, this is... So I pushed harder with them. Like, this is going to be a perfect fit, you guys, come on. And they agreed and had their staff go through it and sent me a contract. And again, it was one of the happiest days of my life.
No doubt. How did you ever stumble upon Kraken? Because they were halfway around the world.
Lots of just Googling.
Googling? Yeah.
I don't have an agent, right? And I have no history of writing, so it was just throwing anything against the wall, finding any place that would take dark fiction that was unagented.
Nice.
So it worked out, and I'm so happy. Out of all the publishers, though, I can honestly say this, that I submitted to, this would have been my favorite. So
Yeah. Now, the cover, we touched on it, but I'd just like to hear a little more because it's pretty unique.
the original one was just this. You could
Yes.
see her midriff, but it was just her down.
I remember
and it was
that,
just a
yeah.
girl. And, Gina French.
Gina French, she was hot.
Well, sure, thanks. But it's going to be awkwardly bridged to my next story. It looked exactly like my friend Vanessa.
Oh, really?
Yes. They would have no way of knowing my friend Vanessa in Gothenburg, Sweden. But everybody I showed it to, and I couldn't not see my friend Vanessa when I looked at the cover, and it made me uncomfortable.
Oh.
So we went back and forth, and they said, okay, we'll get George to take another run at it. So then he just moved her up. You could still see the midriff and the gun, but then he added the upside down cabin, which a cabin plays prominently in the book. It's not upside down, but there's a lot takes place in the cabin. So
Yeah, totally.
There.
It's a little bit of a mind bender, which is terrific.
if you just turned your TV upside down, I'm going to do it again. So,
Yeah.
or if you're watching this on your phone, that was probably a lot easier. Just,
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah. What about the pen name? Tell us a little bit about that.
C.J. Anderson.
C.J. Anderson.
I was vaguely going through it. I wasn't sure how much of myself I wanted to promote on the book. It was uncharted water, Wes.
Yeah.
As much positive attention as it was getting, it was also getting negative attention. Just for the title alone, people jumping to conclusions, haven't read it, just were straight up offended by the title. So I wasn't sure how much of myself I wanted to put out there in the beginning.
Yeah.
So just came up with C.J. Anderson.
Yeah. Well, writing does make for a very external life, and we often have to develop a thicker skin. That's what I've learned. So now the book actually has been out several weeks.
Yeah, a few months.
Yeah. So I'd like to hear a little bit about feedback.
I've been having, honestly, great feedback.
Yeah.
The irony is the majority of the readers are female, and they love the character Gina French.
Cool.
There's some people that will just completely discount it right off the bat. They're like, I would never read that just for the title. And okay, well, I'm just happy I brought out emotion.
Yeah.
In everything I do, I truly believe, Wes, that as long as it forces you to feel something, it's working and it's worth it. If you create something and it causes indifference, why bother? So I'm happy if you love the book. I'm happy if you hate the book.
Exactly.
If you feel so strongly against the book that you want to come meet me in person and spit in my face, good.
Yeah.
It motivates you to do something. Take that negative energy and put it somewhere.
I love that you said that. Isn't that what art's all about?
I
Invoking
think so.
emotion? Yeah.
But more people have loved it than hated it. Anybody who takes the time to read it, I get glowing positive feedback.
Yeah.
And it's always different feedback. It's always revolving around the Gina French character and if people liked her or hated her at the end of the book.
Yeah.
And that's my pat on the back.
Yeah. One thing I really liked about the book is Gina, the smoking and the coffee drinking, and that I always thought this book should just smell like cigarette smoke and stale coffee and
The laptop
whiskey.
I wrote it on certainly did.
Yeah.
While I was editing, and this is a story we talked about before the camera started rolling,
Yeah.
that I was going to tell it. I haven't told anybody who was.
Yeah.
There's a long section of the book where she's gearing up to do this horrible act that she feels she needs to do. And it's not going to be fun. There's going to be violence involved, and she's not looking forward to it. So it's her driving down the highway, and she's flashing back to all these times she feels she's been wronged, and just letting the anger surge and just getting into these dark places to put her in the right frame of mind. And I just felt like I wasn't hitting it. It just looked like fiction written by somebody who'd never been there. So I actually just cut my sleep in half and just actually like method went into that headspace of just being horrible to be around and being paranoid all the time. And it took its toll on me physically. I was going for a routine checkup and my heart rate was through the roof. They couldn't legally let me drive home.
Wow.
Yeah. It was a scary time.
The things we do for our craft.
I can remember laying in the dark trying to get my heart rate down, just bawling my eyes out, going, oh my God, someone needs to pick this book up already, because I've literally pushed this as far as I can go. And a couple months later, Kraken Press sent me the contract.
Wow.
So it was kind of the lowest of the lows, followed by the highest of the highs.
Nice. Okay, we need to take a little break. I'd like to hear more about the actual publishing process with Kraken and
Sure.
working with them. But we're going to take a little break, and we'll be back with our 150th with Curtis Anderson.
You saw me standing alone, without a dream in my heart, without a love of my own.
I'm gonna need you to be a little more gung and a lot less hoe.
We are back with the 150th episode of Lit Happens. We have this fabulous laser show going around behind us. And we have Shaw, prodigal son, Curtis Anderson,
Thank you.
back on the set.
I'm back.
Yeah.
I've been gone for about a year. It feels good to be back. It's like
It
it was
is.
like a homecoming today. Like I
Yeah.
mentioned in the last break, I have Jay Neufeld back helping set up this amazing set, and
Yeah.
Dean, the behind the scenes guy for Lit Happens, and thank you, Wes, for allowing me to come and talk about my book.
Oh, God.
for the 150th episode of
wouldn't
What
have
Happens.
any
It's a
way.
big deal.
It is a big deal.
It's 150 times you've done this, Wes.
It really is. We were the little show that could. We never thought we were going to get this far. So, and there's a lot of life left for Lit Happens.
Absolutely. Like I said, just don't beat my stripped down record.
Yeah, we'll
you
see.
can't do 212 episodes. I'm not going to allow
We'll
it.
see what happens. We'll be watching for you when we hit that mark. So, just before we broke, we were talking a little bit about the actual submitting and publishing process. I thought maybe we could just touch on that a little bit more. Do you want to share with us how many times you submitted, Gina?
I submitted, I couldn't even tell you, over the course of 2 years. Like I said in the last segment, it was heartbreaking because the first place I submitted it to was this little publishing company in the United States.
Yeah.
They loved it.
Yeah.
The first place. I'm not saying that to pat myself on the back.
Yeah.
And it's not like I'm the world's greatest author, but I just leaned back in my chair and like, well, that was easy.
Yeah.
And then they got back to me that summer, like 6 months later, and said, oh, we have to cut 6 from our list, and yours is one of them. And then it was a long 2 years, Wes.
Yeah.
It's time consuming. You have to physically mail stuff out. So many places won't take
Oh, yeah.
emails.
Yeah.
And
It's very old school.
yeah.
Very old school.
So just all
Yeah.
over the world. I didn't submit a whole bunch in Canada. The story doesn't actually even take place in Canada,
Right.
let alone the prairies. So my vision was to just kind of throw it out somewhere else in the world, just plant that seed and see if it made its way back to Canada.
That was savvy of you.
And it did. Like I said,
Yeah.
like we talked about, it's available in every Kohl's in the city,
Yeah.
McNally Robinson,
Yeah.
Indigo, Unreal City, 8th Street Books,
Yes, all the comic shops, which I
Yeah.
love that about your book.
and the place in Lawson Heights Mall, thanks to you.
Oh, Main Stage.
Main Stage.
Main Stage is a fabulous resource for all kinds of local arts.
It's bizarre. I live right by Lawson Mall, so I'll go
Yeah.
into Kohl's and see my book, then I'll walk right across into Main Stage and see my book.
It's a beautiful feeling, isn't it?
It's a weird
magical.
feeling.
Yeah.
I spent so much time raging against the machine trying to make it happen. Now that none of this happened, I still feel on edge. Like it's gonna get taken away from me, right? So
It can't get taken away from you now. What about ebook?
it's available in ebook form on Amazon.com, Amazon.ca, and Barnes and Noble.
Nice.
So it's got a pretty big reach.
Yeah. Now, we've got a few minutes left, so I'd like to talk about the actual publishing. When Kraken decided, okay, we're going to take on this Anderson
Yep.
dude, we're going to release his book. That didn't just happen really quick overnight or anything like
No.
that. That was a process.
It took a long time, and they got rid of the editor who was editing my book halfway through. I
No.
still don't, to this day, don't know what happened. So they had to start fresh, and that was a thing. And it kept getting pushed back, and then they had promised another anthology, because they were pretty much just publishing anthologies at the time. This is actually the first full-length novel Kraken Press ever published. So they had to hit this date for another anthology they had promised, so that set this back again. And then the new editor came on and wanted to make a few minor changes, and that set it back
Wow.
again. And then I was 2 years removed, so I went through it and wanted to make changes again. And it was delayed, but I'm looking back, it was a blessing in disguise. There was definitely some frustration. I remember announcing it on Facebook, and then it came out, I think it got published literally 2 years after that announcement, when it was supposed to be out in the new year. So
Yeah.
it was, the delays were frustrating, but I think this version is actually the tightest version that we could have eventually put out. I would have been really disheartened if that original version 2 years ago hit the shelves, because there was so much stuff that easily could have been cut out, and was.
Nice. I can remember you and I were texting back and forth about this a lot, and I could just feel the pain in your text messages because you were anxious for your baby
Yeah.
to be released. But
Well, and so many people in the city self-publish, and it's done in a month.
yeah,
And so there's huge jealousy
Yeah.
of that.
yeah,
I'm waiting for a publishing company in Sweden to talk to the physical publishing place in the States where it's published,
Yeah.
because it's a lot cheaper to ship from the States everywhere in the world than it is to ship from Sweden, apparently. So there's 3 currencies involved.
right.
So it's getting published and sent out from the States, and I'm getting paid through crack. It's a mess. It makes my nose bleed. I just sit back and let my wife do the paperwork and nod. Okay, there's money being deposited into the bank account.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Yeah, spousal support is very important.
Yeah.
Yeah. How is your family reacting now to this anyway? by the way?
Great.
Yeah.
I mean, they're proud of me. I'm proud of me.
Yeah, actually, I just met your fabulous family. I met the whole bunch at your book launch at Unreal City, and wow, what a terrific
What a terrific night.
gang! What a terrific night!
Thanks to Theo and Unreal City for having it.
Yeah,
The turnout was better than anything I expected. texted me the next day and said that was one of the best turnouts he's ever had for an event.
Yeah.
And we did Kraken rum shots in honor of Kraken Press all night. And,
yes, I had one. And
it just, it was like the ending to a movie for me. All that hard work and that. Oh, I touched my mic. That's something you never do. I'm out of practice. I just punched it. Sorry, guys. It was the ending of a movie.
Yeah.
All that hard work, and then to be there celebrating with all my friends and doing shots. It was pretty cool. It was a cool moment.
It was very cool.
Well,
now we're running out of time, but what I wanted to really get out of you, hopefully, is what is next in the big world of Curtis Anderson, because you have so much creative energy.
I'm working on a movie right now. Those
Nice.
are ironically shot right in this room.
Yeah.
There's a local production company, Eyecatcher Video.
Yeah.
I submitted a script to them for a short horror movie. They liked it, so about a year ago we shot it, and I'm just starting to sit down and edit it, and it's fascinating to be part of that process, to write it, to edit it, to have complete control over it. So I'm really excited. It's going to be called Instruments of Evil. They're looking for a release date later this year. If that's going to happen, I don't know. But in the next year or two, look for Instruments of Evil from Eyecatcher Video.
Oh, Eyecatcher, yeah, they're making quite a name for themselves around here.
As for another book, I'm not sure.
Yeah.
I really don't know. I don't know if I have another one in me. Part of writing is being very selfish and locking yourself away from the people around you to just write for long periods of time. And I originally, when I started reading it that day, again, when I pulled it out of the closet, I had just become a father. And reading from before I was a father, what paranoid parents think about was so way off. And that was kind of almost funny to me, reading what in my mind before I was a parent, what parents think and worry about, and how wrong I was. So that was a huge thing when I started fleshing it out, was writing from that terrified place of a new parent. So there's a lot of that. There's a lot of my own insecurities in the Gina French character about being a parent and wanting to be the role model, making sure your kids grow up and are proud of who you are and what you've done. That's really, at the end of the day, what this book was about. This book was, as horrible as it seems and reads, it was an absolute love letter to my son.
Nice.
I want him to grow up and be like, my dad did a lot of things and he did this, and you know.
I think that's
I find him motivating. That's really my only goal in life, is to have him grow up and be absolutely motivated by what I managed to do.
Is Noah showing signs of creativity,
oh,
like his old man?
Yeah. And I'm so proud of him. He's just the greatest kid in the world. And as for writing another book, again, he's old enough now. When he was a baby, he'd go to bed at 7. So it was easy for me to go write from 7:30 till midnight every night.
Right.
But now, you know, he knows when I'm not there. I'm not playing Nintendo with him. We're not drawing together, and I don't want to miss that time.
No,
so
of course not.
I don't know if there's going to be another book in the near future. Maybe one day.
Yeah.
Maybe when he leaves and I'm for college and I'm heartbroken, and maybe that'll be the emotion I need.
Could happen.
I'm not really sure if there could be a sequel to this book, but
I'm not sure either.
It would be tough, but we'll see what happens.
Nice. Okay, I know we're out of time. I could talk to you for hours, but I just want to thank you for coming up here to this undisclosed location.
Again, the local business, I don't think would be too excited if we promoted this was one of their back rooms.
Yeah.
It's such a good place to shoot.
It really is.
Something dark and twisted. And thank you, Wes. Thank you.
No,
thank you, Dean and Jay and Shaw TV, for letting me come back and giving me this platform to promote my book. Most interviews are 2 minutes.
It was beautiful to sit down and have an in-depth discussion with somebody about the industry. So
you're doing a great job, Wes.
Thanks.
Well, carrying on the legacy.
Thanks. My pleasure.
Can I throw it out right at the end? Gina French is Not a Waste of Roofies. Curtis Anderson's.
Throw it out.
Formerly of Shaw TV. His first published novel, published through Kraken Press out of Gothenburg, Sweden. Available where all fine books are sold here in Saskatoon.
Yeah.
I miss doing that delivery, right?
Yeah. That was
watching Shaw TV.
That was a great delivery.
I used to do my own reverb.
Yeah. Well done. Thanks for catching our 150th episode. We'll see you next time on Lit Happens.
Absolute joy. Thank you guys. That was a bad handshake.
Oh, sorry, dude.